I found out my girlfriend was secretly meeting another man, and when I asked her about it, she smiled and said it was just a test. That's when I packed my bag, walked out, and never looked back. I am 27, living in Texas, and for a long time I truly believed I had my life figured out, especially when it came to love. My girlfriend, Emily, was 25. We had been together almost 3 years, and during most of that time, things felt good and steady. We laughed together often, we moved in together after 2 years, and we even began talking about marriage and our future. She wasn't just my girlfriend. She was the person I trusted more than anyone else. Whenever I imagined my life ahead, I always saw Emily beside me. At least that's what I thought. The first time something felt wrong, it was a Friday night. Emily said she was going out to have dinner and drinks with her friends. That was nothing new. She often had girls' nights, and I never had a problem with that. I decided to spend the evening at home, catching up on a few things. But as the night went on, something inside me started to feel uneasy. By 11:30, I realized Emily had not sent me any texts. Normally, even on nights out, she would send a quick, "I love you," or maybe a picture with her friends. That night, there was nothing. I tried to calm myself, thinking I was overreacting, but the silence kept bothering me. We shared our locations on our phones, something we had agreed to long ago for safety. If either of us was ever in trouble, we could quickly find each other. I almost didn't check, but curiosity got the best of me. When I opened it, I noticed Emily wasn't anywhere near the part of town with restaurants or bars. Instead, her location showed she was at a random apartment complex far across the city. At first, I thought maybe one of her friends lived there, but the longer I stared at that map, the less sense it made. Finally, I sent her a text, "Hey, how's the night going?" A few minutes later, she replied, "Still with the girls, babe. Don't wait up." That was the first lie. I remember staring at that message, feeling my chest grow tight. Part of me wanted to believe there was an explanation, but another part couldn't stop imagining Emily inside some guy's apartment while telling me she was with her friends. I didn't jump into my car right away. I wanted to, but I told myself I needed to stay calm. I didn't want to be the jealous boyfriend who shows up and looks crazy if I was wrong. So I waited. The next morning, Emily came home acting completely normal. She said she had too many drinks and slept at a friend's place. She told me the story smoothly, almost like she had rehearsed it. I nodded, pretending to believe her, but inside I knew something was wrong. That was the first crack in the trust one thought could never break. A week later, she said she had another girls' night planned. I kissed her goodbye, wishing her fun, but as soon as midnight passed, I opened our location again. Just like before, she was at the same apartment complex. This time, I couldn't sit at home. I grabbed my keys, drove across town, and parked a little away from the building. My heart was beating fast as I waited in the dark, not sure if I really wanted to see the truth. About 20 minutes later, the door opened. Emily walked out laughing beside a guy. She wasn't holding his hand, but she didn't need to. Her body language said everything. She leaned toward him, touched his arm, and smiled like she was exactly where she wanted to be. My chest felt heavy watching them, but I stayed quiet. I drove home without confronting her. The next morning, she walked in with the same rehearsed story. Too many drinks, slept at a friend's place. Her eyes didn't even blink when she lied. That's when I knew I needed to watch more closely. Over the next couple of weeks, I noticed small things. She took calls in another room. She left the house at odd hours, saying it was just food with the girls. Every excuse felt hollow. Then came the night that changed everything. Once again, she claimed to have dinner with friends, but her location showed that same apartment. This time I drove straight there. After 15 minutes, I saw the same guy arrive and go inside with her. My stomach dropped. I waited 2 hours in my car before driving home. When she finally returned later that night, I was sitting on the couch waiting. "Where were you tonight?" I asked calmly. She froze for a split second, then repeated the same old line, "Dinner with the girls." That's when I pulled out my phone and showed her the location history. Her face went pale instantly. For a moment, she stayed silent, trying to think. Finally, she crossed her arms and said, "Wow, so you're checking my location now." No denial. No real explanation. Just trying to blame me. I looked at her and said, "Yes, I checked because you lied. Twice. You said you were with your friends, but both times you were at the same apartment. So, I'll ask you again. Where were you tonight?" Her jaw tightened as if she was deciding whether to admit the truth or keep lying. And then she said something that left me frozen. She looked straight at me and said, "This was all a test, babe. I just wanted to see if you would stay loyal and trust me no matter what." Couldn't believe what I heard. A test? That's what she was going with? She even tried to smile like she believed her own story. "Yeah," she continued. "I asked a male friend to help me. I wanted to see if you'd get insecure or start snooping around. You failed. By the way." Those words echoed in my head. Failed. She had lied, snuck out, met another man, and now she was saying I failed because I didn't blindly trust her. I looked at her and said slowly, "If this was a test, then you failed. Because the second you started lying and sneaking around, you destroyed the trust between us." For the first time, her confidence cracked. But instead of admitting anything, she got defensive. "So you're really going to throw away 3 years over one mistake? I was just making sure you weren't insecure." That was the moment something inside me snapped. I realized nothing I said would matter. She was never going to admit the truth or take responsibility. She would only twist things until I looked like the bad guy. I stood up, walked to the bedroom, and pulled out a duffel bag. As I threw clothes into it, Emily followed me, her voice rising. "Are you serious? You're actually leaving over this?" I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I just zipped up the bag and said, "I'm not insecure, Emily. I'm done." Her face changed from angry to desperate. "Wait, stop. We can talk about this. You're overreacting." But I already knew my answer. I walked past her, bag over my shoulder, and out the front door. Closing that door behind me felt like closing a chapter of my life. When she finally walked in around 2 in the morning, I was sitting on the couch, pretending to watch some old show on the television. But the truth was, my mind was running in circles. She walked through the door like nothing happened, dropping her purse on the counter, smiling at me, and saying she was just exhausted from a long night with friends. I nodded slowly, holding back the words that wanted to burst out. Deep down, I knew something wasn't right, but I told myself to wait, to watch, to see what would happen next before jumping to conclusions. That night, as she slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to push away the heavy feeling in my chest. The next weekend came, and once again she said she was going out with her friends. This time, my gut told me to check her location, even though a part of me wished I wouldn't find anything. But there it was, clear as day. She wasn't at the restaurant she claimed she'd be at. Instead, her location showed a quiet apartment complex across town. My hands shook as I sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at the little blue on my phone screen. I felt like my world was breaking apart piece by piece, and I could hardly breathe. I tried calling her, but she sent my calls straight to voicemail. That was the moment I realized I couldn't just sit there waiting anymore. I got in my car, heart racing, and drove across town. When I pulled up to the building, my fears were confirmed. Her car was parked right outside. I sat there in the dark, watching the door, feeling like I was about to break apart completely. After nearly an hour, she finally stepped out. And she wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, laughing and holding her hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. My chest burned with pain, and for a moment, I couldn't move. When she saw me standing there, she froze. I asked her straight to her face, "Who is he?" And that's when she smiled. A cold, careless smile I'd never seen before. She actually had the nerve to tell me, "Relax. This was just a test. I wanted to see how you'd react." Couldn't believe what I was hearing. My whole body trembled, not from anger, but from the crushing weight of betrayal. I realized right then that the woman I had loved and trusted for years was gone. Or maybe she had never been who I thought she was at all. Without another word, I turned around, drove home, and began packing my bag. Every shirt, every pair of jeans, every little piece of my life that had been woven together with hers. I took what was mine and put it away. She came home later, trying to laugh it off, saying I was being too serious, and that I should just forget about it. But I didn't respond. I zipped up my bag, threw it over my shoulder, and walked out the door. She stood there in shock, calling after me, but I didn't look back. Not once. That night, I drove to a friend's place and slept on his couch, feeling empty but also free. It hurt more than anything I'd ever experienced, but deep inside, I knew I had done the right thing. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk away from someone who doesn't value you. And that's exactly what I did. In the days that followed, I expected to feel regret, to wonder if maybe I should have stayed and tried to work things out. But the truth was, I didn't miss her at all. What I felt most was relief. Relief that I finally saw her for who she really was. Relief that I didn't waste more years on someone who could look me in the eye, lie straight to my face, and then call it a test. She tried to call me. She tried to send long messages saying I overreacted, that it didn't mean anything, that she still wanted a future with me, but I never answered, because I finally understood that love isn't a game, and if someone treats your heart like it's a joke, then they were never meant to keep it. Walking away that night was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most powerful. And as I closed the door on that chapter of my life, I promised myself that from then on, I would never settle for anything less than real, honest love.